that it persists today. Even President John F. Kennedy was so fascinated with her story that he once cornered the real Anastasia's cousin at a White House state dinner to grill her on the case. Anderson's claim, and the fate of Anastasia, he said, was the only aspect of Russian history that he found interesting. The idea that Anastasia had miraculously survived the brutal execution in Ekaterinburg burst upon a world traumatized by a decade of tragedies that marked the passing of the old order. The sinking of the Titanic, the horrors of the First World War, the fall of dynasties, the Bolshevik Revolution, and the threat of communism. However unlikely, it spoke to natural human optimism, to the desire that somehow Bolshevik bullets had failed to destroy an entire family. That for decades it captured international imaginations undoubtedly owed something to the almost unbelievable universe of opulent privilege that was, until 1917, the world of the Romanovs. In this sweeping epic, the public discovered a drama of mythological proportions, a glittering lost kingdom, the tragic love story of Nicholas and Alexandra, the young haemophiliac heir to the throne destined never to reign, 4 beautiful young daughters in flowing white dresses and picture hats, frozen for eternity in haunting photographs and flickering newsreels, the malevolent peasant Gregory Rasputin, a tumultuous revolution, a brutal, bloody mass murder, and a former ruling family scattered by war and struggling to adjust in an unfamiliar world. The narrative that emerged in the wake of Anderson's claim wedded the romanticism of a faded Edwardian past with the travails of the modern era, Greek tragedy and traditional fairy tale transcending a realm of dispassionate fact to become legend. Before the revolution, Anastasia had been an insignificant princess, her life spent behind protective palace walls. Her presumed death in 1918 wrapped her in a mantle of martyrdom, slaughtered at the hands of the Bolshevik regime. A surviving Anastasia, though, particularly for many of the highly impressionable émigrés who fled Russia after the revolution, represented a figurative and literal rallying point for monarchist sentiments and hopes. Anderson's claim fell upon an audience left battered by upheaval and deprivation, loss of families, loss of positions, loss of fortunes, and loss of country, the very elements her tale so powerfully embodied. Those who accepted and those who rejected Anderson did so for many reasons, but all had been touched by the traumatic events in Russia. Those favourable often came filled with hope and saw her through eyes moist with influential, nostalgic tears. Many on the opposite side denied the possibility that the ill and emotionally unstable woman could be Anastasia, and denounced her on the presumption that it was simply impossible for anyone to have survived the Bolshevik firing squad. The struggle of Anderson's claim reflected the struggle among the surviving Romanovs, royal relatives in Europe, émigrés, and the world at large to make sense of a complex tragedy, to find in the chaos of war and revolution some glimmer of hope, some hint of mercy, some proof that goodness still existed on the horizon of a new day. The idea of miraculous survival from Ekaterinburg played upon this psychological need. Anna Anderson appeared at a moment in history when emotions were still raw and little was known. Silence by Soviet authorities, the fact that investigators never found any Romanov corpses, persistent rumours of escape and rescue. For Anderson, all of it coalesced into a powerful alliance that surrounded her with an aura of plausibility. For most of the 20th century, history had only a theory, and, as time proved, a largely erroneous one, of what had happened to the bodies of the imperial family. Conflicting reports, picked up and repeated by officers, foreign diplomats and journalists, had the Romanovs evacuated from Ekaterinburg to Poland, to Germany, to the Vatican, or to the Far East. Alexandra and her daughters, it was said, were hiding in remote convents, or were prisoners in Siberia. Stories from those who believed that the Romanovs were dead were often equally absurd, including tales that Nicholas II's severed head was on display under a glass dome somewhere in the Kremlin. The paucity of fact, of actual physical evidence,